thankful that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. I am glad to be here. I'm glad to have this opportunity um, and just share kind of what I've been working with my students with. So I hope it helps.
It will. I know it will. So Cynthia has come to us with good ICU experience, 13 years, and she's also a clinical instructor teaching several different nursing cohorts. And so I'm super excited for us to learn from her today. Why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us about who you are?
Okay, so I'm Cynthia. I've been a nurse for about 13 years now. I'm nationally certified in critical care. I did teach ACLS and BLS for a while, and that's kind of how I got the bug, I guess, to teach. And I've been teaching at the local community college here in Fresno, California, for the last 6-7 years, since 2013.
Wow.
And so I do just med-surg, and this semester I've got my baby nurses, my first semesters, and then I have my fourth semester students. So it's nice to see kind of the beginning and the end of it. And but they're both fun. I like both of them for just different reasons. The baby nurses are so excited and eager to learn everything, and the ones getting ready to graduate are excited to apply what they know. And all the little critical thinking connections are starting to really, come into place. And it makes me proud. And being, in Fresno, it's a large community. We have almost 1 million people in the county. We have a level 1 trauma center that I work at per diem in the ICU. Mm-hmm. And then I also work at one of the sister facilities in the recovery room. And so because it's a small community, I end up working with my students when they've graduated. And it just fills my heart. It really does. And so what I've done, I've kind of done a lot of things in nursing. I've started out in telemetry and cardiac step down. I dabbled in a little bit of ER. I'd spend I do part-time in ER or per diem in ER while I had my other job. I've done device education for patients and nurses and doctors. I worked for Zoll for a while with the life vest. That was really fun. What else? I've done pediatric PACU. I've done adult PACU. And the last 7 years, I was doing travel nursing. And so I really just settled down last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really like travel nursing. I've met a lot of great people that I've stayed in contact with, stayed friends with, and it was just it was a great opportunity to see other facilities, how they did things. Mm-hmm. Even though a lot of the protocols and procedures are the same for standards of care and practice, but it really helped round out my skills and my education. And, sometimes I'll do things, and I was in ICU a couple of weeks ago, and we had a patient that we could not get the pulse ox to read. Mm-hmm. And I only had an ear probe. And so I just took the ear probe and clipped it in his nose because we didn't have the nose pulse oximeters. And the doctor was like, I've never seen anybody do that. I'm like, you just got to MacGyver it a little bit. And I wouldn't have been able to think like that or really think outside the box had I not had those opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. I learned so much as a travel nurse, different ways to prone patients, or just those little tips and tricks of the trade that you don't get when you stay in your comfort zone in the same ICU for eons, right?
I really encourage people to do it.
Yeah. So back to the education piece. Tell me, for people that are tuning in that desire to be educators or are currently educators trying to transition their students to online, what do you think, or maybe what skills do you think are necessary to be in that education role? And then we'll move on to talking about the students.
So I think that to be in the education role, you really have to have the mindset that, especially with adult learners. So because we're not talking, children learn different, kids learn different. Adult learners have to be able to have a lot of hands-on, and they have to make that connection, that, that brain, and hand connection. They have to use all their senses. And I started out teaching all the new grads that would come in, and I would let them follow me for a day, and then the next day I would kind of ease them slowly into it and talk them through everything. I asked lots of questions. I've made, like, I can't even count how many poor students cry just because I like to ask questions, and they think that I'm grilling them, but I'm trying to see how they're thinking. I'm trying to understand their thought process. And when their thought process isn't quite on point, I'll ask a directing question to try to get them to change that line of thought, to help them reach the answer themselves without giving it to them. Because if I just tell you the answer, you're more than likely not going to remember it. But if I work you through a critical thinking process, it's called the Socratic method of teaching, where you ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question right back. And I just guide them through questions until they make that connection, and then they remember it, and then they're able to teach it. And what I found is that unless you have that passion to really educate the future of nurses, because I'm growing nurses, I'm growing the future of nursing here in my little valley, and hopefully, beyond. But you have to be passionate about it, and you have to really focus on making sure that they have their needs met, and that they feel successful at the end of the day. I don't like to see students, put down. I don't want them to feel nervous. I try to make the learning environment as relaxed as possible. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to help you. I'm not going to let you make an error. I'm not going to let you do something wrong. I'm going to help you do everything right. I'm going to help you work through it. I'm not going to put you out there too far beyond what you're capable of right now. And I think a lot of times people who are preceptors don't quite understand that, and then they don't have a good transition from school learning to on the job learning. And then I think that, like, in the clinical setting, when we're dealing with students, at the college level, if you are just teaching in a way where I'm going to stand here and just give you the information and kind of read off the PowerPoints, it doesn't engage them. They have to be engaged. They have to feel comfortable to ask questions. They have to feel comfortable to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of the old school way of teaching, at least the way I was taught, it was a lot of fear-based. It was a lot of it was a lot of fear-based. It really was. And I don't like that for my students. And even in this transition to online, it's been easy for me. It hasn't been easy for their instructors. But I continually have to remind them, there's no pressure here. Okay. We're all going to make it. We're going to make it together. We're going to walk through this together. I'm here to help you. They need a lot of guidance and understanding. And unless you're prepared to provide that, just as you would provide it to your patients, as you're caring for your patients, then maybe teaching isn't for you. Because I can tell you, at the end of a 12-hour day with my students, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I am exhausted. I've been running up and down the hospital, hitting 5 or 6 different units. We have post-conference for 3 or 4 hours, and I'm talking and educating them on what we've seen and done throughout the day. And I'm exhausted. Because I have to think a lot about what I'm doing and telling them, and I'm not, usually I just do it. It's so second nature to me. And so sometimes things will fly out of my mouth and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I forgot I even knew that, because it just comes so second nature.
Right.
You have to have that passion to teach them, help them, guide them in a nurturing and therapeutic way
Mm-hmm.
that we would do with our patients. And I think sometimes that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, my goal with my students, my first semesters and my fourth semesters, this, especially with everything going on, is to really just be there for them, support them through this, and try to relieve some of the pressure that they're going through, because I know this is a huge adjustment for them.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would love to touch more on what it means to be a good preceptor, but this isn't the Q&A for that.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, because I think so many of us are pushed into precepting without being adequately prepared.
Yes.
We're voluntold, this is your preceptee.
Yep.
I think a lot of times we're not prepared for that. And that's not fair to our preceptee, and it's not fair to the preceptor, but fair is neither here nor there. It's happening. And how do we prepare those nurses going forward to be good teachers and good preceptors? But another time. Talk to us about your tips and tricks for these students who are unwillingly transferring to online education when they say, but this isn't how I learn. Well, this is how you learn today. How do we move forward?
Exactly. I was actually excited about the transition because I love it.
Oh,
For
good.
me, it's a lot. I'm looking at the positives of this, and I really tried to impress that upon my students. I have one student that has to drive 45 minutes to get to clinical. And I'm like, you don't have to drive 45 minutes anymore. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning anymore. I mean, think about the positives of this.
Yeah.
I also told them that, think about it like this. Whether you're going to go for your RN to your BSN or your BSN to your MSN, more than likely, you're going to be doing that online and in the online setting.
Mm-hmm.
And you already have a head start now. Most of the people that are going to be going into those programs have probably been out of school for a while. And so it's a huge transition for them. When you make that transition to further your education, you're already going to be ahead of the curve. You're going to be acclimated. So this is a great learning opportunity for you to take with you when you advance your education and get your advanced degree. So it's kind of how the context that you put it in. If you say I'm stuck at home, well, then that sounds worse than I'm safe at home. And it's the same thing. We have to look at this in a positive way. It's not a positive thing that's going on right now. I know that. I know that students are sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, but we don't have to suppress that, but we don't have to allow it to control us either.
Mm.
And then yesterday, actually over the last 2 days, I've noticed that a lot of students and other groups have been, and even my students have been telling me how unmotivated they are. And that's okay. That's completely normal right now, because you've been in such a pattern that now there's a lot of uncertainty. Like my 4 semesters up until this week weren't even sure they were going to be able to graduate. And so just not even knowing if you're able to graduate, I can see where that would kind of take the air out of your balloon.
Yeah.
You know, you're plugging along, everything's going great, and then now you don't know. But we just heard from the BRN that they're making adjustments to the percentage times of simulation coursework, and that's going to put us right on the line, and we're going to make it. So they're feeling a lot better about it now. And I think another key is to basically just focus on what we can control so that we can stay focused on our goals and stay on track. And I know 4 things. I know that this is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to end. I don't know when, but I know it will. I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can't see it, but I know it's there. So I'm just going to keep moving forward. I know that from here till the end of the semester, school is going to be online. It's already been, I don't know about other schools. I know about our school and our state college here in town. Through the end of the semester, everything will be online.
Mm-hmm.
So it's neither here or there. We're going to be online through the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm.
Next semester, we're going to go back to normal. But for right now, we're going to be online. So we're just going to adjust to it and we're going to move forward. I know that we can do hard things because we've already proven that by getting where we are. We've overcome so much to get through prerequisites and get into the program and get as far as we have in the program, that if we can overcome that, if we can work that hard and do all those hard things to get where we are right here, right now, we can do this. This is not even hard. It's just a little challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little adjustment to our learning, but we can do it. It's the same thing. And then I know that plans don't always go as expected. So we have to trigger that nursing part of us that says we're going to assess the situation. We're going to diagnose the problem, right? So we're working on our ADPI. We're going to plan how we attack this. We're going to implement it. And then we're going to evaluate how we did. And we're going to be flexible. We're going to pivot when we need to. And we're going to use the skills that we've developed to get ourselves here to overcome our fear, our uncertainty, and the overwhelm that we're feeling right now. So I really think that I put together 10 quick tips. And the first 5 focus on ourselves and focus on mindset. Because if we don't get in the right mindset, we're not going to be able to study effectively. We're not going to be able to reach our goal. And so right now, we have to do what I have done and what I'm telling my students to do and what I'm begging everybody to do is turn off the TV, turn off the media. Whatever you have to do, turn it off. We are constantly barraged with, this week I've been hearing, the new normal. This is not the new normal. This is 3 weeks in. If this was October, I would say, oh my God, this is the new normal. This is not. This is a small little season in time. It's going to pass. But if we continually consume that negative information, it changes our brains. Negativity changes our brains and how we process information, how we retain information. And if we allow ourselves to consume that, it just perpetuates the stress, our helplessness. We're not able to focus on the things we need to. So like what I have been doing lately, I have an app on my phone. It's called Forest, and it's free because I like free. And I can set times on there, and I've been playing with it. I've been trying to get longer and longer, but you can start out at 30-minute increments where you focus for 30 minutes and you set the timer. And when you reach your 30 minutes, you grow a little tree or you grow a little bush.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you click on your phone before the time is up, you kill it. And yesterday I accidentally killed my tree and I was really sad about it. So then I set it again, but it's a great little game to kind of play to get your mind off of everything going on around you, and you're focusing on your VSIM, or what is the other one they're doing? Sky Harbor, Sky Point. I can't remember what we're doing with my other class. You're focusing on your work, you're focusing on studying, but you're actually forced to do it because you don't want to kill your tree. You don't want to kill your bush. So it's like it makes a game of it. Second, I would recommend that you create a realistic schedule for yourself. Yeah. I've found that having to be sequestered here at home, especially on my long stretch of days off, I was trying to pile too much on. And because I knew I couldn't leave, I knew I wasn't teaching. I wasn't going to be in the clinical setting. And I was really creating unrealistic goals and expectations for myself. And so what I suggested to my students was, on Sundays, you create your weekly top 3. And I do this for myself on a regular basis, but you create your weekly top 3, like have to, must get done this week. And then you break it down over a daily basis with little tasks to reach the goal. If you have kids at home, which I know a lot of people do now, you're going to have to adjust that, and you're going to have a weekly top 5, because now you have to incorporate their learning into it. And we don't want that to go off into the wayside. I mean, it's just as important as ours is, but we have to be able to think outside the box here and adjust our plan. Realistic goals also allow us, it sets us up for success. So if you put too much on your plate and then you don't reach the goal at the end of the week, you're sitting there and you're feeling awful about yourself. This is not the time to feel bad about yourself. This is the time to set yourself up for success. So I was thinking about what I did when my son was small. When he was a baby and I first went back to school, I would actually adjust his schedule to fit mine so that I could study when he was sleeping. So I'd wake him up earlier than normal, put him to bed or put him down for a nap so I could get my studying in, my homework in, and then I would end up going to bed earlier as well. When he got a little bit older, I went to bed when he did, usually around 7:30, and then I would get up at 2 a.m. to study, because I knew that I had a good solid 5 or 6 hours before he got up, where the house was quiet. I could enjoy my coffee.
Yeah.
I could relax and focus.
I like that, because some of us function better in the evening and some of us function better in the morning. I'm so much more a morning person. I'm with you. I used to get up super, super early when I needed that solid study time, versus trying to force myself to stay up late, and I would retain nothing. So
exactly. You have to really think outside. You have to get creative here. And this is a skill that's going to go with you into nursing, because there are going to be times you have to get creative with your patients. And you have to remember that if you have kids at home and they're school age kids, we're not relegated to an 8-hour time frame, right? We have all day, we have 7 days a week. And if you have to be online at 10 o'clock because you have a live class, then you know what? Now's not the time to stick to the rule that you can only have screen time, at this time. Now's the time to say, guess what, sweetie? Go play your video games and get them occupied. Give them their favorite snack. Go set them up. Let them play the video games. Let them watch Frozen for the 10,000th time. Whatever it is you need to do to keep them occupied, it's okay. Because when it's all done, now we're going to regroup, and now we can focus on their little class project they need to do, their spelling, whatever it is they need to focus on. We've got all day. We've got 10, 12 hours to get this stuff done. We've got weekends. Take the pressure off. Stop.
Absolutely. Julianne. Oh, sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
Julianne commented, my kids drive me crazy while I'm doing schoolwork at home, and they have absolutely no work to do. I usually bring my schoolwork to work so I can get it done.
Yeah, I did that too.
What you gotta do.
Depending on how old they are, I know the younger ones, it just seems like when you're doing something important, that's when they want to bother you. That when you're doing nothing, they could care less. It's like they know.
Yeah.
They know. I remember I was just thinking about it this morning when my son was small. I would go to the bathroom, and then before I knew it, there'd be little hands under the door, and the dog would be there, the cat, everybody was there. Like I couldn't even get away. They don't care about you until you're not focusing on them.
Yeah.
I would, if I was Julianne, I would focus on a way that, especially since we're stuck at home and it's not always easy to study at work. Yeah. Either get up super early, put him to bed early, give him something to focus on when you're trying to study. Like I said, a video game, let them watch their favorite movie. Just something that takes the focus off of you and you can get your work done. Mm-hmm. But this is going to require a lot of thinking outside the box, and maybe you have to stay up a little later. Maybe you have to get up, 2 hours earlier. And it's only for a short time though. So this is not going to last forever. So for the next 6 weeks, right? 8 weeks, because our semester's over, I want to say the third week in May. So we're on spring break right now. So they've got maybe 5 weeks left. So for the next 5 weeks, we can make this adjustment. Mm-hmm. I would also, I think creating a morning routine is really important, and not just now, but something that we can carry with us when we become nurses, because it gives us a time to set up ourselves for success for the day. And it allows us to set our mindset for the day. What I've started doing, what I've been practicing for the last 6 months is when I wake up, I do not reach for my phone. I try to put that off as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up every morning. I give myself about 40 to 45 minutes. So I wake up, if it depends on my schedule, but I usually wake up really early. I'm usually up around 3 or 4 in the morning. But I usually give myself a 45-minute window where I will spend time in prayer. I will try to get at least 30 minutes of, I don't even want to say exercise. I move my body for at least 30 minutes, because exercise sounds just so, ugh, right? But I move my body for at least 30 minutes. And then I spend 5 minutes writing 5 things that I'm grateful for.
That's awesome.
And focusing on gratitude, especially in a time like this,
Mm-hmm.
I think is even more important. And you don't need a fancy journal to do that. Just a piece of paper, a notebook you get at the dollar store, just something for you to write down, put it on paper, make it tangible,
Mm-hmm.
something that you're grateful for. You can find 5 things, 5 simple things. Your children, your family, being safe at home, being able to finish your program, because what if we weren't able to finish?
Right.
Be grateful for your health and the health of your family. Um, I know that when I do that consistently, it really sets my day up a lot differently. And when I get off the habit of that, and I'm like, oh, I can skip today, I'm fine. And then 5 days goes by, I can feel the difference.
Absolutely. I love that morning routine. It also fuels me and it helps me focus, and it really changes the trajectory of my entire day if
It
I
does.
allow myself that time.
It really does.
Mm.
I've started this about 6 months ago, and I can see even my energy level is different. It's such a small thing to do, and even when I don't feel like doing it, I drag myself out of bed, and I'm glad that I've done it.
Absolutely.
So especially right now, focusing on something good, something positive, something we can be grateful for during this time. I'm grateful I have a refrigerator full of food. My heart hurts when I think about what some people might be going through right now. It
Absolutely.
really does. And I have to focus on, if I let that fill my mind all the time, I would be a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. I'm like, I got tears in my eyes just thinking about it. So it's easy to find things to be grateful for.
A student told, or actually, I read it on my Facebook group here. A student said, she said, you know what? As much as I want to be in clinicals, learning and getting my hands on, I put into perspective that these nurses that are out there working so hard have a shortage of PPE. How selfish would I be if I
Mhm.
walked in those doors and put my learning above the national shortage of PPE? And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And I thought,
Yeah.
yes, you've got it. Like,
Yes.
you can just grasp on to any student that's out there listening, thinking like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do without this clinical experience? Yes, it's different. But all of us nurses that are at the bedside welcoming you in when we've just been in a national crisis, we're going to know where you were at, and we're going to have that extra dose of grace. And if that person doesn't, you can kindly remind them, hey, I didn't get clinical experience because Corona.
Exactly. And it's not even, I mean, if you really think about it, it's only been 3 weeks. So we were already almost at the halfway mark through this semester. And especially for like the fourth or your fourth or fifth semester, depending on, if you're associates or bachelor's program, you're already at the end anyway. So it's really such a small amount to be missing that it's not going to make a difference. In it really isn't going to make a difference. And I've had a lot of nurses. I have literally been on the phone with 2 state representatives, their assistants. I put calls into our senator. I mean, I have been calling in favors from people I know to get this in front of the governor, because adjusting our clinical time from 25% simulation to 50% is such a huge help for these students. And I put out a plea on my Facebook page for people to help me and contact our state representative. And I was very surprised. I had nurses get, oh, they don't get their time. They don't. I'm like, wait a minute. We're talking about such a small percentage of time. It's not going to make a difference. And now that we've got it, like I'm one of my students messaged me, and she's like, oh, I feel so much better now. I can think now. I'm excited about class now. They were just, our last clinical, they were all like this. They would just, I could see it in their faces. They're like, what are we doing here? So I think when you start focusing on, like, especially that student saying, that it takes away from the PPE that we need. And to be honest with you, the nurses are so stressed right now. Having a student would just push them over the edge.
Agreed.
So it's better for us, it's better for our students, and it's better for the nurses right now, so that we can all just focus on what we need to.
Agreed.
And the students, they should be focusing on the fact that they're safe.
Yeah.
They're being protected, because we already know with COVID that it can be airborne, and we're not given N95s. We're asked to wear just regular surgical masks. So we're being exposed. And every day we're hearing about so many nurses being exposed to this and coming up positive with it and getting sick from it and dying from it, that our students should be so grateful and happy that they're not being exposed to this.
Yeah.
We're keeping them safe. And I'm glad my students are safe. I'm glad that I work at a hospital that is really focusing on our safety. And so I've been very fortunate, and like that just goes on my gratitude journal every day. So another thing that I tell my students, and that I've been trying to do, like especially on my days off, when I have a big stretch, you have to get up and you have to get ready every day, like you're going out into the world. You take a shower. You do. Now today I did a little bit more because I didn't want to scare everybody, but at least a little bit of mascara, a little bit of lip gloss. Wash your hair. Put clothes on, don't put sweats on, don't be in your jammies all day, because that really changes your energy level when you're walking around in your pajamas all day versus you put on an actual outfit, because, God forbid somebody comes to the door and I'm in my jammies, right? So, just act like somebody's going to be coming over and dress appropriately. You will feel better about yourself. You will feel a difference in your energy level.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, so this is number 5, like in our mindset, that I've been focusing on, is to do one self-care activity a day. So paint your nails, go soak in the tub and sip your favorite beverage and listen to some relaxing music, move your body. I like those little, $2.99 paper face masks you can get at the CVS or, wherever you find them. Like I find them at CVS. They're always on sale. So I get one. It makes me feel better about myself, putting a little face mask on. I get 20 minutes to lay down and relax. Do something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, especially if you have kids at home, you're focused on their needs, you're focused on school, and you're not taking care of yourself. And as nurses, we get into that habit of taking care of everybody else and not ourselves. So this is
feeling guilty when you take the time to take care of yourself.
Exactly. Feeling bad about it, or just putting it off. Like, oh, that's fine. I don't need that. I don't need to do that. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to burnout. You're going to find, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, you're like, why do I feel so awful? Why is my health so bad? Why am I so tired all the time? It's because you have not been practicing self-care.
Yeah. And I'll add something about those of you that are right now listening and saying, I have kids at home. I don't have time for self care. Well, maybe your perspective of self care needs to change a little bit. Maybe that means, you're lacking some bonding with your kids because you're too busy studying and preoccupying them doing this or that. Maybe self care means giving your kids a solid 1 hour of your attention, undivided, cell phone away, books away. Like, maybe you just need to alter that a little bit. It all looks different for everybody, but make it happen. Like, make it to where you feel like I gave myself a little bit of me time, whether that's with my babies, whether that's with myself, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's important to give ourselves, when I think back when my son was small and I was in school, I didn't initially give myself that. I was so focused, and then when his needs weren't being met, he would get rambunctious or something, and then I would get frustrated. He was frustrated. We were all frustrated. I remember he was like 5 months old in his little bouncy seat on the table, and he's crying, and I'm crying because I can't study my Spanish, and I'm crying because he's crying, and we were just both hating each other. And it was at that moment that I realized, I'm like, I've got to really change how this is working for us, because it's not. And as he grew up, even when he was like 5 or 6, I would bring him into the kitchen with me when I was getting dinner ready, because all they really want is time with you.
Mhm.
They don't know that the time they're spending with you, you're making dinner. They just feel like they're included. And I would have him, put the forks on the table. And as he got older, I'm like, cut the bread, or hand me this, or let me show you how this works. And it's little things like that, and appreciating this time we have, because I didn't have this time with my son when I was in school.
Mhm.
It was school and work and school and work and school and work and school and work. And I missed out on a lot, but I'm going to tell you something that I found out a couple years ago. They're not going to remember any of this. So all that pressure you're putting on yourself, they're not going to remember a thing. Your perception of this moment in time and their perception of this moment in time are two different things. And I found it out because my son, when I graduated nursing school, I was on stage giving a speech, and I'm looking down at him, and he's beaming and he's smiling. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh, he's going to remember this. It's going to motivate him. Mind you, he's 5 at the time. Oh, he's going to remember this the rest of his life. Oh my gosh, this is going to be such an impactful moment. Oh, he's going to excel. Oh, this was just everything, right? So about 2 years ago, I asked him, oh, honey, do you remember when I graduated? He says, yes. I'm like, well, what do you remember? And he goes, I remember we went to teppanyaki. That's what he remembered, the teppanyaki. And that's when I realized that all the things that I had been worried about were all the wrong things. And had I slowed down and appreciated those little moments and that time, and maybe spending time with your kids is the break that you get from staring at that screen for 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
because you need a break. And so that could be a self-care. Yeah, I could see that as self-care.
Yeah.
You're taking care of your kids, you're taking care of yourself, you're taking a break from that screen. It's just important to look at the perspective of it. And 20 minutes, 30 minutes is not going to change. It's not going to make a difference in your study. It really isn't. 30 minutes is not going to impact it one way or the other. And so 30 minutes with your child, to just give them that undivided attention, is worth it all the way around.
Yes. We've got lots of comments come in. I'm not going to read all of them. Please forgive me. I've read them, but I'm not going to say them all out loud.
No, that's okay. I'll go through them later.
What's that?
I'll go through them later.
Yes, we'll go through them later. But Celeste did say that something she does, she's an instructor, and something that she does is bring everybody, when she's at the end of her lesson, she brings all the kids and family around so that everybody can say hi to each other. And
I love that.
Yes, that's awesome. That's a great way to get your kids
I'm going to do that.
That, this is the classroom setting that we're in right now. And it just gives them a different perspective. I love that, Celeste. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to use that next week. Thank you. I
So,
really like that. And it makes them feel like they're helping. You
yeah.
know, they understand they understand. And it just, when you include them in it, it does help. I love that idea. Thank you. And her name was Celeste.
Yeah, Celeste.
Oh, my grandmother's name was Celestina.
Oh, that's
She
beautiful.
wanted to be a nurse. I know, she wanted to be a nurse, and she never had the opportunity. So my sister and I are living out that dream for her.
Oh, that's precious.
Yeah. So, okay, let me get into the last 5 real quick. And the last 5 are focusing on our studying. All right. So, 1, you need to give your instructor some grace. A lot of instructors have been teaching in the classroom setting for so long, and this is such a new technology for them that the transition is difficult for them as well, and they are just as stressed. I know the first week we went into this, I was getting emails and text messages and phone calls from the theory instructors, from the other clinical instructors, from the dean of students, from the director of students, because everybody was freaking out about using Zoom. And it's not even that hard, but because they'd never done it, it was a new thing they had to learn. And then they had to transition all their course work online and figure out how to do that. And I've seen students get upset with their instructors because they're not getting back to them. They don't have regular office hours like they used to. Just understand that as instructors, we're worried too. We're worried for you. I was, when I found out we got the extra 25%, I was so happy because I was worried for my students.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone calling senators and state representatives. I never do that, but we all should be doing that. But I never did that. But I was so worried for these poor kids, for my poor students that, I was trying to do anything in my power to make this happen for them. And your instructors, you might think that they don't care or that they're not, but they are worried. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you graduate. And this is just a hurdle that they have to overcome too.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to give yourself some grace. You have to breathe for a minute, and you have to allow yourself to shift in your learning from in class to online. You have to allow that time to transition. You can't expect yourself to one day be in the classroom and the next day convert to online and get it automatically and be able to process this automatically. You have to give yourself the patience, just like you would give anybody else, right? You have to understand that the negative self-talk that you're giving yourself is not what you would be telling your friend. That's not what you would be telling your patients. You have to change that self-talk, that voice in your head, from saying, oh, this is so hard, I can't do this, I'm so frustrated, to, you know what, you can do this. It might take you a little bit longer to understand it, but you are going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe. Take some time. You have to use that same therapeutic conversation, the same therapeutic talk with yourself. What I have been telling my students to do now is to, I really like Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it so easy for me to get online with my students. I can see them all there and we can interact. And I love that. So I've suggested to my students, and this is what I suggest to everybody, is you can get Zoom for free. I think you can only get like 40 minutes of time a day on it, but the paid version is like $14.95. And if you only needed a month, you're out $14. And if you don't have $15, then get 15 of your student friends together and everybody chip in $1 and then pay for it. And then you all have access to it and make your own online study group.
Yeah.
Outline your content, divide it all up amongst each other, do your section, and then get online and teach each other.
Yeah.
And walk each other through it. Take your NCLEX books and do questions with each other and work through everything together. Right now, this is where you learn about teamwork. This is where you learn to lean on each other and help hold each other up, just like you're going to do when you become a nurse and you're having an awful day in your unit and it's super busy and everybody has more patients than you're supposed to and everything's falling apart. You're going to have to lean on each other and you're going to have to create that teamwork. Mm-hmm. And right now is where you learn to do that. Learn to create your tribe so that when you become a nurse, you already know how to set that up. And it's a great tool to use so that you can stay connected to your classmates, because I get missing your classmates. I've been dreaming about my classmates from like 15, 16 years ago lately, because I've been thinking about how we could have transitioned through this, because we didn't have online. It wasn't like this 15, 16 years ago. So we're so lucky that we have this available to us. So the last two things, one thing I've been hearing a lot of students talk about is the amount of time that that their face is in a screen. And when you think about it, and we're on our phones and then we're on the computer and everything is online now, and our lectures, I know some students are getting recorded lectures, and then other instructors are doing live lectures. So depending on however it's done, you're still online a long time. Our first online clinical day for my 4th semester students, we did 6 hours online. Wow. It was awful. We had to, because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't, I walked them through a VSIM scenario. We did some critical thinking exercises, and all I'm thinking is I got to get these hours in so they can graduate. And we did 6 hours. Wow. And at the end of it, I was literally like, I need a glass of wine and I have to go to bed right now because I'm exhausted. And so what I've been doing with my students is we do 2 hours, we take a break, usually 15 minutes. We do another 2 hours, we take another 15 minutes, we break it up. So now that you're spending more time in front of a computer, it's even more important to work in breaks. Mm. And I'm going to go back to that little Forest app, because I use that, and I've worked up to 3 hours. So I can spend 3 hours online, and because I'm trying to catch up on all my grading. And so I use that to focus. And so for 3 hours, I will focus, and then I take a half-hour break. And it also keeps me from checking my Facebook and checking Instagram and checking my emails and sending a text message. It really helps keep me from being distracted. So I get that 3 hours I do it an hour at a time, but I get that focus, and then I also allow myself a break. You have to allow yourself a break, whether you get up, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to throw a load of laundry in. You can take 20 minutes to do something. Go downstairs, get some tea, go to the restroom, throw a load of laundry in, go outside, take in the sun for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. Move yourself outside if you can. I love sitting outside when the weather's nice and studying outside. Change where you're at, but try to reduce that screen time and limit your non-school screen time. Like, this would be the perfect time to, especially since when we go back to number 1 and we talk about, limiting our media intake of all this information, this is the perfect time to kind of cut that back. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing that I always tell my students, but it's the hardest thing to do, is to eat healthy and drink plenty of water. You have to. Hard. It is hard, especially when you're stressed, because what do you want? What do you go for when you're stressed? You go for the carbs, you go for the sweets, you go for the bad things. Mm-hmm. And what happens is those things satisfy us in that moment, and it helps, because we're all trying to soothe ourselves. I have to stop going to the store because they have this really good chocolate cake that I keep getting, and I don't need the chocolate cake. But when I get stressed, I want the chocolate cake. Yeah. But what we have to do is, if we want to maintain our energy, if we want to maintain our positivity through this, eating junk food like that, eating carbs, eating that chocolate cake really it does not work to my benefit and doesn't work to your benefit doing that. If you focus on eating healthy proteins, good fats, limiting your carbs, you're going to find you have more energy, that you think clearer,
Yeah.
you can concentrate better, and you don't get that carb crash from, eating, 5 brownies or whatever it is. And water, because water keeps us hydrated. It helps us with our energy level. It helps us sleep better. It's probably more important than even eating right. When you're tired, it's probably you're dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps us to deal with stress when we're well rested and when we have enough energy. When we're depleting our energy levels from all the anxiety and our frustration and all the negativity, adding a poor diet to that makes it even worse. And then it just isn't conducive to learning. So I can't impress upon you how important it is to focus on trying to eat healthy and drink plenty of water. Stay away from coffee. Because that's just going to dehydrate you. I've switched to tea. I'm drinking chamomile. I've really made the transition because I've noticed that on my long stretches over this last couple weeks, sometimes I'll have 4 or 5 days off in a row. That if I start drinking that coffee, then I crash. It's because I love my espresso. So I've switched to chamomile, and I actually feel better. I have more energy. These are all tips and things that I'm using because I'm just as stressed. I'm just as worried about my brother and sister nurses. I'm worried about our physicians. I'm worried about our respiratory therapists. I'm worried about everybody working through this.
Yeah.
And I have to do something to help myself through this because nobody's going to help me. And if, not buying the damn cake, then I'm not going to buy the cake.
Smart.
Not making my espresso, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to have my tea. And so this is a good time to learn self-discipline. And if anybody needs, to talk, or you need more help, or you need anything, I am more than willing to listen to you, to be there for you, to hear you vent. But you have 5 minutes, and then we got to get to work. We got to vent for 5 minutes, and then we're going to get to work.
I love it. So those of you that are still watching, get your questions in because this is going to be the last little bit. I'm going to ask Cynthia one more question and then we'll wrap up. So tell us about Nursing School Simplified. You started it in 2017. Tell us what it is, why you started it, and what you're excited about its future.
So the reason I started it was because I had so many of my clinical students tell me that I should be a teacher, that I should be a theory instructor. And I even had one group of students tell me that they were putting together a petition to have me brought on as faculty. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. But you have to have a master's degree to teach at the associate's level here in California. And you have to have your doctorate to teach at the university level. And I don't have my master's. So I'm like, I can't do that. And I wanted a way to make a bigger impact on more students, and to use the teaching methods I use on my students with other students and help them. I love growing new nurses. I love helping students, and I love when they succeed, and I want to be a part of that. I want to make a contribution to nursing and be involved in a way that I can say, I did that. I was there. I helped that person learn something. I helped them make that connection because I want them to be able to do that for somebody else in the future, because that's what we do. We teach each other, and I want to be here to support them when they need it the most. And I just have this soft heart, this soft spot in my heart for students. And before I became a nurse, I was going back to school to finish my history degree, and I was almost done because I wanted to be a teacher. And when I realized that probably wasn't going to be suitable for me, being that it's too repetitive. It's too much of the same thing year after year. I tend to get in trouble when I get bored. So I thought, oh, for sure, I'm going to get in trouble. And I needed a career where I wouldn't be bored, and where I had the chance to constantly learn and push myself and
welcome to nursing.
And I had so many people telling me, just go be a nurse. And I thought, no way, I can't do that. And I took an EMT class and I was like, oh my God, I love this. And then I took a monitor tech class and I got it. Like it just clicked for me. And I got a job at our level 1 trauma center working in the ICU as a monitor tech. And my hospital happened to be sponsoring an 18-month program in conjunction with the school that I teach at right now. And everything happened the way it was supposed to. And I got in in the first 6 months that I was working there. And it was meant to be. I just didn't know it. But I had to travel the road I did to get here. So I can't regret anything. And now I'm a teacher. Now, I thought I was supposed to be a history teacher, but I was really supposed to be a nursing instructor. I just didn't know that. And it's funny how life does that. And you think you're going down one road and you take a turn and you're on the road you were supposed to be on the whole time. And it's just been the most rewarding thing in my life. Second to my son, this is probably the most rewarding thing in my life.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. If you guys want to connect with Cynthia, I'll list her contact information and all the ways you can get a hold of her. I know she'd be happy to hear from you. And
yes, I'd love it.
Hi. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.